Hi, my name is Lisa Parziel, and this is Module 3. In this module, we're really going to learn what rep juice is. In other words, how to rank the reputation. So now that we've learned why we would want to rank, who we should rank, now we have to talk about how you go ahead and actually rank that reputation, or more importantly, take any bad things that are up there and try to push them down, try to bury them, drown them, whatever you want to call it. We can't really eradicate them, but we can, in fact, do some good and make sure they don't show up and control the reputation. So what are we going to learn in this module? Well, first, we are going to talk about SEOing your reputation, your customer's reputation, and beyond that. We're going to talk about the goals and strategies, why and what you're going to do. We're going to talk about how to bury the bad reviews. So how to get rid of those 3-star, 2-star, 1-star reviews. And again, we're not going to get rid of them. You can't most of the time eradicate them completely, but what we're going to do is we're going to make sure they don't show up. We're also going to talk about burying the bad SERPs, or the search engine result pages that show up when somebody puts in some type of search. A page shows up, that's not the page you want to show up. We're going to talk about how to bury those things. We're really going to go after some optimization basics. So this course is about SEO and how to do the things necessary. And so we're going to start by talking about the basics. So I'm going to call it optimization basics because it's not just for search engine optimization. You can use these skills to optimize many different things for many different reasons. And then I'll go over some tools that I use and that I like that help me simplify my SEO or my optimization techniques. And then we'll talk about some next steps, and I'll talk to you about the extras that actually come with this course and how you utilize those. So let's talk about some strategy first and foremost. So when you think about strategy, our strategy is pretty simple. We want to dominate page 1 and rank for every position on page 1. So when somebody types in the key phrase, the business name, the person's name, whatever it is that we're trying to optimize that particular reputation, we want to rank for every single position on page 1 if we can help it. So we're really going to talk about the techniques that will help you easily dominate that page 1. And when I say easily, it's time consuming in some cases, but it's not rocket science. This stuff can be done by anybody. So the things we're going to talk about, how to do things using the website. So if there's a website, company website, personal website, whatever it is, how we're going to use that website to do these things. How we're going to use citation sites to do them. So citation sites are Yelp and Insider Pages and City Circle and things like that. How to use social media, Facebook, Twitter, Yelp, etc. How to use images. So again, not just for dominating page 1 of the web SERPs, but sometimes we want to actually dominate the image SERP. So the image page that shows up in Google, like we have shown you. Video, we can use video for both. So you can look up video specific and how to dominate that page, but also how to use video to take a couple of those places on page 1 of the natural listings. And finally, news. You can use news for quite a bit of stuff, and we're going to talk about that as well. So let's start by talking about reviews. I know that reviews are something that aren't going to go away. They're going to get stronger. They're going to be out there more and more and more. So how do we bury the bad reviews? How do we get rid of reviews that are less than favorable? Well, let's start by saying you can't get rid of them. You can rarely get Google, Yelp, Yahoo, whomever to take them away. They typically don't have the time or the desire to really be, the review police. So they're not typically going to take them away. Now, there are some instances, and we do have some material about that, how you can go about trying to do that. But for the most part, what you're going to try to do is just bury them. So we're going to assess the amount of work that's needed in order to bury a bad review. And we need to be very specific about what it's going to take, because when you think about quoting your client, when you think about how much somebody's going to pay you to do it, you want to know what work is involved to do it. So the reviews are based on a percentage. And what do I mean by that? So if you have a 5-star review, for example, then that 5 stars is based on the total number of reviews you have and what score you got on those reviews. So reviews are by a percentage. Lower scores are harder to raise. So if you find someone out there that has a score of 1, and they have 1 review, that's not a problem. But if you find someone who has a 1-star rating that has 20 reviews, run away from that. It's not worth trying to fix that. It's not worth the money. Go find an easier client. So we're going to look at the current score. So for example, if we have 3 stars with 10 reviews, we're going to look at that, and if we had 3 stars with 10 reviews, that's going to be a 3-star review. If we added 10 reviews at 5 stars, it would make it 4 stars. And I'm going to show you a calculator, and you can download this. Let's take a look at this calculator. And I created this in Excel just to make it easy to try to figure out what type of work is needed to actually raise a review. So if I have a client that starts out having 2 5-star reviews, 1 4-star review, and they got a 1 1-star review. So they have a total of 4 reviews, and based on that, they're getting a 3.8. Now 3.8 is not bad. However, if somebody were to give them 1 more 1-star review, they would quickly get down to a 3.2. So this calculator allows you to come in here and play with the numbers to try to figure out what it's going to take to help the client. So I put 2 out here so you can look at, here's their current status. So say our customer has 2 5 stars, 1 4-star, and a 1-star. I can come over here and play with it and still see the original. Say, okay, if they have 2 5 stars, 1 4-star, and 1 1-star, what would happen if all I got for them was 10 more 5-star reviews? So I'm going to make this a total of 12. And you'll see they go from a 3.8 to a 4.6. So in other words, to move them from a 3.8 to a 4.6, I have to get them 10 5-star reviews. Now, a lot of people don't really understand the math involved. So they often think, well, if I've got 1 1-star and 10 5 stars, I automatically am a 5-star. It doesn't work that way. The math just doesn't work out that way. So if we look at taking and say we want a 5-star, we want this client to have 5 stars. I'm going to move this to 22, and you'll notice I now have a 4.8. Again, how many would it take? 32 gets us to a 4.9. So really the sweet spot for this client really is to move them to a 4.6. And most white papers out there are now seeing that as long as somebody has a 4 or above on a 5-star rating scale, folks are pretty apt to go look at them and go check them out and those types of things. So you really do want to know what's your sweet spot here. Getting them an extra 10 only brings them up 0.2. Getting them an extra 20 only brings them up to 4.9. Realistically, I would not even worry about anything past 4.6. You can continue to increase that score on a regular basis, but on this particular client, I'd be targeting to get them 10 5-star reviews. Now, this calculator works very well to where if I were to somehow miraculously be able to get rid of this 1-star, I can come here and hit the 0, and you'd see I jump to a 4.7. And then if I come here and hit the 0, I jump all the way to a 4.9. So getting rid of just one super bad 1-star review is equivalent to adding, in cases, 10 or 20 5-star reviews. So it is worth the effort, is what I'm saying here. It is worth the effort to try to get rid of, to try to literally eradicate a 1-star review if you can. And we do have a separate video you can watch specific to how to do that on Google and how to do it on Yelp. So do look in the video section and look for how to manipulate the 5-star reviews in Google and the 5-star reviews in Yelp. Okay, so we're going to talk more about how to, do some of those things later. But now let's talk about how we bury the bad SERPs. search engine result pages. How do we kind of bury them and get rid of them? So I'm going to start by just telling you a few things, and then we'll go take a look. So again, just like we did with reviews, we want to assess the amount of work that's going to be needed in order to take a bad SERP listing, so something that shows up on page 1, and bury it. What I always like to say is the SERP rule for me is a rule of 20. So every one listing that I want to get rid of, I've got to go ahead and optimize 20 pages of content to try to get rid of that one. Now that's a number that's a pretty sure number, meaning if I can optimize 20 pages, I can almost guarantee I'm going to get rid of that one bad thing. But if we had 2, 3, 4 different bad things on the first page, we could possibly use the same 20 things to go ahead and get rid of or bury the bad. So, and I'm going to demonstrate this here in a minute and talk to you about it. So here's an example. If position 1 is a bad SERP result, literally we're going to take 20 pages and we're going to optimize those 20 pages to try to move them up while we move the actual bad page down. So realistically, how are we going to do that to take an average of 20 pages to optimize it? Well, we're going to use the pages that we already see. So when you look at the first page results, you're really going to see that there might be one bad. So we'll pretend there's only one bad. That should mean there's 9 or 10 good things, hopefully, on page 1 about that particular key phrase, business, or person. Meaning, if we already have some stuff on there. Now, if there's not, say that the only thing you can find is just the bad thing, then that's going to be a pretty uphill battle to try to fix somebody's reputation. Because that means you've got to start from scratch and you've got to rank a bunch of stuff, and that's going to take time. So it's not impossible. It's definitely doable. To me, that's an SEO package while doing a rep management package because there's a lot of extra work involved and you're starting from scratch. So hopefully you're going to see that there's already content out there. There's already things on page 1. Maybe they're ranking 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th, 10th place. The idea is you start with that content and you take that content and push it up. And as you push it up the page, it's actually going to move the bad content down. And as you can see, we're changing the scales so that way we can actually put it farther and farther and farther down. And that's why I say you need a good 20 pages of content in order to bury something, because you don't want it to be in spot 11 so it constantly shows back up on page 1. What you'd like to do is push it down, typically to page 3, if not farther, and constantly, and that's how you earn, I like to say that's how you earn your residual money. So when someone hires you to do reputation management, the idea is not only to get rid of it and to bury it, but to keep it there. And then to make sure if something bad comes, you have enough good content continually on a regular basis that that bad content's going to have a hard time, growing legs and taking hold. Okay, let's go ahead and look at a practical example. I'm going to use the client that we've used from the beginning and kind of just show you what I'd be looking at when I am talking about SERPs. So when I type in dentist Hebron, Ohio, or dentist Hebron, OH, or whatever it is, realistically, that's something that we do want to fix because the client is ranked so darn well that this particular client does not want to, when people are searching dentists, come up with negative reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and look and see what comes up. So the map box, we're going to deal with that separately. Let's go down here just to organic for a minute and talk about that. So the first thing that comes up is the client's listing. That's fantastic. Then it's meet the dentist. Fantastic. About our office. Fantastic. Oh, there's the bad health grades. So this right here is the listing that is kind of bad. Then it goes on to Facebook, good. Smile Reminder, good. Yellow Pages, good. Wellness.com, good. So lots of good stuff. So really the only thing on page 1 we really want to get rid of is this health grades. So we could go out there and we could try to fix health grades, but it's going to be exponentially easier to try to push this down. So let's take a look what's below this, because we're fine with the 3 that are above it. What we're trying to do now is we want to move this one down. So we see there's a Facebook profile, Smile Reminder, Yellow Pages, Wellness, Comfort Dental. This is not even them. Maybe it is. We look at these down here, and what we want to do now is figure out which one of these we could optimize and push higher, which would essentially move this one down. And then we would go over here to page 2 and do the same thing. Try to see if there's any more that we can take and push up so as we don't have to start from scratch and totally redo everything. And even if you have to go on to page 3 or 4, the idea is simple. You want to do as little work as possible, and finding stuff that's already being indexed by Google is the way to go. So once you identify which one of those things that you want to move up, so for instance, their Facebook profile, then you're going to optimize to try to move that up. And those are the skills we're going to be talking about next on, some of the basics of SEO and how to do those things. Okay, let's talk about some optimization basics. So if you happen to be a very experienced search engine optimizer already, you might want to skip this section. If you're not, this is the meat and potatoes, the basis for everything you're going to learn later or do later. We need to know these optimization basics. They're going to count for many things, whether it be ranking a page, ranking a profile, a social media site, an image, whatever it might be. These are the basics you want to learn. So we're going to talk about key phrase selection and weighting, what we want to look for, image optimization, how to optimize images, content development and optimizing that content, link building, and social signals. So let's start with key phrases. Obviously, the number one thing that we have to talk about is what key phrases should you be optimizing for. So at the end of the day, when we're talking about reputation management, marketing, those types of things, we're probably going to be optimizing somebody's name, somebody's company name, a key phrase that looks up that particular person or company, or it's going to be for some type of brand or product. So what we want to do is really identify which one of those key phrases are going to be the most important. It could be something you start with small. So maybe they have several different things. You look them up several different ways, and they need a lot of reputation management, optimization. You have to start somewhere. So you'd probably want to start with, what's the worst out there, but what are people typing in the most to find them? So in other words, what can give them the most return on investment very quickly? Because if you go in and you figure out everything that needs to be done and it ups the price to, thousands of dollars a month and they can't afford that, you can start small and say, that's okay. Look, Mr. Client, I'm going to do this part first, and that's going to help you gain more clients. Because remember, if they're having negative reviews, negative information, bad reviews, or even just negative news and stuff out there on them, folks aren't going to hire them. And so everything you can fix helps them get better and better and better so they get more business. As they get more business, they're going to be able to pay more and fix the remainder of the stuff. So it's kind of a win-win for both of you to be working at it slowly if that's what it takes. Think about how others may search for that particular person, business, product, client, etc. And based on that, you need to figure out, how many keywords you can do. So keep it simple. Obviously, unless you're being paid additionally for organic or local SEO on a lot of keywords, you don't want to overcommit or overpromise. What you want to do is kind of put together a package in many cases of, hey, here's some SEO work we need to do because you're not ranked hardly at all out there, or you're ranked very well, but it's very negative, so we have to fix it. It's going to depend case by case basis, but initially you do have to select the proper keywords. So as we're talking about key phrases, let's talk about what we use the keywords for, what we use these key phrases for. Obviously, one of the first things you need to understand is no matter what you're optimizing, whether it be an image, whether it be a blog article, a news article, a website page, a page name is important. And if you can do it, now not always can you do it, say an image is on a page you don't control, you want to make sure the page name uses that key phrase or that keyword in the URL. Why? Well, because Google is going to actually use that in the path, so that means they're going to go ahead and optimize or use that word as part of the optimization algorithm. If you actually place it in a folder, you should probably use the folder name, same thing, for the same reasons. Image names should always have the key phrases in them. And you want to make sure you have unique image names. So we don't, if the key phrase is Dallas dentist, I don't want to name every single picture Dallas dentist. Maybe I vary it up a little bit. Maybe it's Dallas dentist, dentist in Dallas, Dallas dentist XYZ. You want the key phrase in there, but you don't want it to be the same exact key phrase over and over and over. Why? Google will notice that and they'll start, seeing those types of things. It is part of their algorithm. Vary the usage, like I just said. Make sure, you only use 30 to 40% proper usage. What I mean is if you have 100 links, 30 to 40% of them should actually use the key phrases, and then the remainder should use things like click here or actual verbiage of, for more information, read more, etc., etc. You do not want to weight it so heavily that the only keyword that Google sees that you're using for links, they have algorithms that catch that and you'll actually be penalized for it. So make sure you vary the usage of the key phrase, but it is important to use it as often as possible. And then think naturally. Don't keyword stuff. Nothing worse than reading an article out on, a content page. We're going to talk about content here shortly, but there's nothing worse than reading an article that reads badly because somebody's trying to use the keyword so much that it just doesn't read naturally. So think about, that and don't use it where it doesn't belong. Okay, let's talk about image optimization. Some of the basics for image optimization are pretty simple. So, and we're going to actually have to take a look at some images and I'm going to show you how to do some stuff. But image optimization really is all about images being very unique. So the first and foremost thing that I would tell you is that you're trying to get unique images from your client, and it's pretty tough. You'll ask them for it, they'll tell you, they'll give it to you, and you don't get it. So you're going to have to be very creative in how you get unique images. One of the ways that I like to get unique images is I ask the client for some video, and if they happen to have video, I will take a screen cap of that video, and then that will be my unique image. Or I will take images and manipulate them and play with them. And so check out the extras. We actually have some information about how to create unique images. But all images should be unique. Why? Because Google will index and give you credit for only first seen images. So if it's actually seen the image before, maybe you got it from stock photography, Google is not going to give you any credit. Therefore, there's not going to be any link back. Therefore, there's not going to be any SEO juice, really for that picture, other than if you would put some meta description or some information in it that actually has some keywords in it. Other than that, you're not going to get the credit you want for it. So if you can, 100% of the time, you're looking for unique images. It's not always possible, but strive to do that. Do use the key phrases in all meta, including the image name, in the tags behind it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So check the extras. There's a whole video on how to actually manipulate the images and how to do the metadata. So make sure you use all the techniques possible in your metadata, and if you're using Windows or Mac, there's 2 different ways to do it, and we do cover that. Meta description should be complete. Make sure you take the time. The difference between a 3rd and 4th place ranking, or even somebody who can get on the first page and somebody can only get on the 2nd page, often it's the little things. So while it seems tedious and it seems like it's a pain, every single image should have meta descriptions behind them. And what do I mean by meta descriptions? Well, let me show you one. Okay, I've opened up Photoshop and opened up an image. Now, I have a Mac, so on a Mac computer, you don't have the same options as on a Windows computer. On a Windows computer, you can right-click on an image, choose Properties or Info, and you can do many of these things that on a Mac, I do have to use a different program. Now, so on a Mac, I'm just going to show you what the meta information is, not necessarily show you how to do it. We have a separate video for that. But if I right-click or look at File and look at File Info, you're going to notice that this image, for example, doesn't have any meta information. So notice I can do document title, author, author title, description. I can rate that image. I can put in a description of who's writing it. I can put keywords in. I can put a copyright notice in. I can put a URL in. These are all things that I can add to a photo, and if Google has never seen this photo before, it's going to take all this information and it's going to put it into its database. So why is that important? Well, say I wanted to associate me with SEO, so this could be SEO expert in Dallas, Lisa Parziel. And then I can come down here and say the author is Lisa Parziel, who's a expert in SEO Dallas. And then I can come here for the author title, type my name, or type, any other information I'm trying to get in there. And then I'm going to write a very long description. Now we're going to talk about name, address, and phone number, what's called NAP, a little bit later. But in the description, I would put a description with keywords, make it a whole paragraph or two of good content, readable content. I'd probably go ahead and put my name, address, phone number in there, things that I want to go ahead and get in to Google's database. I would give myself 5 stars. I would fill out the rest of these, including a copyright notice and then a URL. When I get done, I would then just hit OK, and in Photoshop, I can just save that photo. And now that photo, the next time somebody opens it and they go look at the info, they're going to see that that information or whatever information I have put in there has stayed in there. Again, we're doing this so Google indexes it. So every single photo that you use, whether it be your website, and here's a trick I use. When I build a website for a client, every photo, whether it be a 2 pixel by 2 pixel background repeating color, every single photo, and there could be 1,000 photos, every single one of them, if they are an SEO client of mine, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I do my due diligence. If they're not a client, I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to explain to them it all needs to be done for SEO purposes, but I'm going to explain to them there's an awful lot of work. The same is true when you're actually looking at a reputation. So think about an image is going to be used in insider pages, Merchant Circle, Yelp, Facebook, Twitter, etc. People have a tendency to use the same image over and over and over and over. While it's easy, now hopefully you can see why you'd want to use a different image that's totally unique on every single profile, because you are basically increasing the database that Google has on you. You're increasing those key phrases, and you're actually increasing link backs and things like that. So putting that metadata information on every single image is hugely important when you're doing SEO, optimization, rep management, those types of things. Okay, and last but not least on this page, I do want to tell you, you want to vary where you store your images. So in many cases, people will store them on their website, or when they sign up for Yelp or some other online profile, Facebook, Twitter, etc., they'll store the images on that particular database. But if you've been out there and you've noticed, there's typically a couple things you can do. It'll ask you to upload an image, or it might ask you, where's the URL for that image? Remember, when you actually store a photo somewhere else. So I'm going to come out here and just show you, for example, if I were to go out here to Flickr, for instance, and I would store the photo on Flickr, for example. So if I come here and I look at my photos and I were to upload that photo that I just manipulated, so when I would upload it here to Flickr, and then I use it as a URL, instead of physically using that image on Twitter or on Facebook, remember, Flickr is a very high authority website as well. So having the image, especially if it's a brand new image Google's never seen before, you put it on Flickr, it says, hey, here's this Flickr profile. It gives SEO juice to Flickr, but then we link it to something else. We now have a pass-through link. What do I mean by that? It's actually giving us a higher amount of SEO juice by passing it through another entity of higher authority. I would typically, if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, things like that, I typically will use their platform to upload, unique images. But especially my website doesn't really have high authority in most cases, but Flickr does. I'll place the image on Flickr, and then I'll upload that image to Flickr and then point back to it on the website. Why? Because when Google goes to get it, it sees that I'm getting something and that website is pointing somewhere else. So you can use some unique strategies on where you actually store your images to help with your optimization. It just gives you a little bit more SEO juice, so to speak, pass-through juice that helps your reputation efforts. Okay, content is a big subject, and we're not going to cover it in its entirety in this particular module because we have some extras on it. But some of the basics. When you talk about content, you're looking for unique content. Google should never have seen this content before. And when I say never, I say 75 to 100% unique. However, I will tell you that I personally strive for 100% unique content at all times. Every word is 100% unique. And there's a tool in the tool section I'm going to talk to you guys about that I actually use to make sure that my content is 100% unique. So being that when Google sees 100% unique content, what it does is it actually puts it in its database and it gives credit to the place in which it found it. So technically, we want to make sure that Google sees a lot of unique content around those things that we're trying to rank. You want to use varying lengths. Now, back in the day, it was 300 to 450 words. Google has made it very apparent that they want meatier content. So I'm now suggesting 800 to 1600 words in length for most articles. So whether it be a blog article, a website page, do not use thin content. Thin content is not a lot of content on a page by itself. We want to make sure we have varying lengths. So you don't want to have all of them 800, 900, 1,000. You want to, 888, 962. You want to make it to where there's no patterns. If you're consistently putting up the same exact number and the same exact content, Google's algorithms are getting a lot smarter and can pick up on those things. Plus, the richer the content, the more likely Google is going to see it as unique, quality content. And make it rich content. I'm going to make this statement. Do not scrape content. There's a lot of people out there who teach, and in some cases it's really good and you can do it. But I don't do it, and I can rank entire entities just on content alone. So all these other things I'm showing you, they're all great and they help, but I have been able to rank things purely on content because it's 100% unique and it's rich, good content. So don't scrape. Scraping means using software to go out there and grab content from somewhere else, and then you use a spinner or something like that to redo the content. And it's just thin content. Google's getting pretty good at figuring that kind of stuff out. Now, when you're putting your key phrases in your content, be careful. Don't put too many. One of the bad habits people get into is they start just stuffing keywords into that content. In every other sentence, they're using the key phrase. Use it naturally. Use it where it makes sense. I say there's a 2.5% ratio of word count. So if you had 100 words, you should have, 2.5 of that should be the key phrase. If you had 1,000 words, you would probably have, 25 keywords. So you really want to keep that balance right around 2.5%. There are plugins that you can use that will actually help you determine that. Some of them are SEO plugins. Others are just content plugins. So if you're using WordPress, they have that kind of thing. If not, you can actually use, Microsoft Word or what have you to actually, look up words and see. You can see how many times it's used, and then you can go ahead and see how many words there are, and you can do a little formula to figure out what's the percentage of content. Okay, another rule for content is to use what's called an H1, H2, or H3 tag, your heading tags. I typically use the H1 for the title, the H2 becomes my subtitles, and my H3 is typically what I call my tag out, meaning the last thing I write about, the last phrase, is typically an H3 tag. All of these need to use the keywords. Okay, let's look at an example of what some good quality content looks like that's ranking. So I'm just going to look up one of my pages. Let me just look up logo design, Flower Mound, which is where my company is. And so what you'll notice is I come up second and third. And on that page, notice there's a specific page that's actually ranking. So logo-design, which is something I put in, and then it knows I'm a logo design in Flower Mound. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this so you guys can actually see the content. So this is a page that obviously I want to appeal to a customer because I want them to hire us for logo design, but I also want it to rank in Google. So if we look at the anatomy of this and we look at it, it's aesthetically pleasing to the customer. It gets straight to the point. So there's not a lot of stuff on here, but there is a formula being used. So let's go edit the page. Yes, this is a WordPress site. And in here, I'm going to show you a couple things. So we talked about using the H1, H2, and H3 tags. So let's first start by saying that my title in the theme I'm using is set to make the title in H1. So notice my keywords, logo design, flower mound. That's what I'm trying to rank for. Then, if you look at the name of the page, logo design, brand development 2. I didn't use flower mound in there. I could have, but I didn't need to. And then we come down to the page, and the very first thing you're going to see is I use logo design, flower mound company, Portside Marketing. So it sounds natural, but the first 4 words on this page are my keywords. They're bolded. They're used right away. And then I go on to talk about some things, and then I use another header tag. So if I go take a look at that, that's an H2. Notice now I used an H1 with my keyword, which is logo design. But notice in my H2, I don't use the exact word logo design. Instead, I use it logo design. There's the word. It'll get indexed like this, but then I add ers at the end. So it does sound natural. Notice I didn't use flower mound again. I did not use the city qualifier again. I don't want to overweight my pages and tip Google off that I'm trying to do this. And so again, I go down here, I start talking about things, and I'm using things like the word design, logos. Notice in this case, I use the words backwards. So I say awards for various categories and brand marks and design. Oh, I mean logos. So it's seeing the words backwards, but it's still seeing those 2 words. And then I talk about our Flower Mound award-winning logo designers. Again, I'm trying to use those keywords. Now, there's not a lot of content on the page. If you go down to the bottom, there's a little bit more content down at the bottom. Logo design, flower mound. This too is another, I believe, H1 tag. It's another H2 tag. And then the last thing is an H3 tag. And take a look. Now, down here I put topic, logo design, flower mound, and brand development. You could have put something like call us for logo design, flower mound, and brand development. What I'm trying to do is on the last bit of information on that page, I want to use my keywords again. I want to put them in an H3 tag, and I want to make sure they're the last thing that Google sees. So you could reword this better. I also put down, notice I put, and this is back from the old days. I don't take it out because it's not penalizing me, but back in the day, I used to put these little things at the bottom of the page, logo design, Flower Mound, Texas, Flower Mound logo design, brand development, flower mound, company logos, brand development. You used to use keywords and try to put them in there. Now, we're not just talking about content here. Remember, we're also in SEO and optimization, and rep management is all about ranking and moving things up and showing people what you want them to see. We have to also look and say that in here, there's also all of these images. And if I look at every single image, they're in a gallery. So I'm just going to open up this gallery and take a look. Notice this image. I'm not doing over optimization. Now, some people really would say you should optimize every single image on that page. If you have one image on a page, yes, optimize the heck out of it. I have so many images on this page, it's not a good idea because it would be over optimizing the page. If you kind of look through, all of these, they're named, they have a title. But notice I'm not doing captions and alt tags and descriptions. I could definitely do that. But on this particular page, because there's so many images, it would tend to over-optimize the page. It would actually be a red flag, and it'd probably actually get me ranked on a lower basis. It's a fine line. You do have to really play around with it. You have to really, just see what works. If you're in position 2 and you want to move up to position 1, you can play with some stuff, but realize you could move down to position 3 instead. So keep track of where you are and what you change in case you need to put it back. And that's a big key. In optimization, you want to optimize that in which you control, not what you don't control, because you want to be able to change it as Google changes with the times. As Google does different things, you want to be able to make those changes. So I can go through all these images, but I'll tell you they're not overly optimized. What you're really trying to see here is that I have a system in place. On every single one of my pages, the title's in H1 and uses keywords. The first words on the page are bold and they're using the keywords. I always have at least one more H2, if not two, and I always have an H3 and they use keywords. H3 and those keywords are always the last thing on my page. And then I put good quality content, and this is actually not the best quality content, but because I'm going after a smaller location like Flower Mound, which is a sub-city or a suburban city out of Dallas, I can get away with it. Now, if I was going after Dallas, I'd probably have to do a whole lot more work, which is why we don't always try to rank for the bigger entities. Again, we're going for low-hanging fruit most of the time and trying to get what we can. So when I view this page, I want you to see that, again, it's very natural. If I were somebody considering hiring me, what I really want to see is the goods. I want to see the logos. I want to see what I'm hiring more so than I want to see a bunch of text and talk. You got to have the text and talk. Notice I put a lot of that text and talk down at the bottom where they're least likely to see it. So remember, when it comes to content, you really do want to make sure that you're using the H1, the H2, the H3 tags on a regular basis. Okay, first and last key phrase rule. Notice I said it should be the first thing on the page. It should be the last thing on the page. That's my first and last key phrase rule. All the assets on the page should be optimized unless, as we saw, there are too many and would actually do you a disservice. And when I say all the assets, it could be images, it could be videos, it could be links. Remember, even links are assets because they link out somewhere, but you have the ability to give them names and things that you can add keywords to. We want to make sure the meta descriptions, the keywords, and the titles for every single page is there. So remember, on pages, and I don't think on the website we're using any software to do this. I think we do it by hand, but I can check. Yeah, see, so we're not using any. I don't have any plugins that do the meta descriptions. I do them all by hand on a page-by-page basis. And so the meta descriptions are, when you get in there and if you were to look at, and this is Safari, so I can't see it, but if I were to go look at the source code, I would see that there's a meta description and a meta title and keywords and things like that. Even though some search engines don't use them any longer, especially Google, we want to put them in there anyway. We want to make sure we have every opportunity. It could be a Yahoo page or a Bing page that ranks because we've used those things that actually knock down something higher up on the top that we're trying to knock down. And then once you get the content created, so I created content, I want to do what's called distribution. So if I write a blog article and I put that blog article out there, I want to make sure it's syndicated. So if we go to my marketing blog, for example, and I write, some kind of article on 10 ways to use social media to increase ranking, I will write that article. It'll be unique content to my website. I'll have it out here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and maybe write up a little paragraph for every site I want to put it on, a little bit different, so it's unique content again. I might go out to blogging websites. I might go out to social media. I might link back to this page. So if I'm trying to rank, and we'll go back to the logo page, for example. If I want to rank this logo page, even though it's not really an article, I might go out and I might write a story about logos. It's not that in which I want to rank. It's really maybe this page I want to rank. I'm going to create a link back to this page using link backs. Now again, I always use unique content that I control. Now there's many strategies out there for getting buying links and using third-party websites and things like that. If I don't control it, I don't use it. Why? Because if Google changes their policies, I want to be able to go back in there and manipulate that data and not be stuck. Now you can disavow now, but back in the day when I started doing this, you couldn't disavow, so it was really important. So what do I mean by link back? Well, maybe I write a Twitter post about this article and I put that out there and it links back to this page. And then I create a Facebook post. Again, I'll use unique verbiage on that and probably a unique image on that. And then I, go ahead and put that out there. Maybe I create a video where I talk about logo design, and in that video, I link back to this page. Using, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but using the highest authority sites you can to link back to this page, what you're doing is you're creating pass-through SEO juice, meaning, well, Twitter's very reputable, so if it links over here to my site, odds are that's a pretty good link. Now, not always, but there's a big strategy behind it. So we always want to make sure that we syndicate or distribute our content to various sites. How many you're going to have to do, it depends on how competitive that key phrase is, how competitive that particular market is, and where you're trying to get ranked. And then I do want to make a comment about questions and answers. They're the new rage, right? So for dental clients, we used to create pages just around things like dental implants. Now we're creating entire pages on the most common questions. For example, how much do dental implants cost? And let me just show you that real quick. If I were to come out here to Google, and I would say, how much do dental, notice I don't even have to finish typing because other people type this in all the time. When I go there, you'll see that dentalimplantcenter.com has done it right. They've got a FAQ out here about dental implants. What do dental implants cost? Dental implants, attractive and cost effective. 5 things to know. How much do dental implants cost? And what I'm noticing here, for example, Time Magazine, AIID, places that really don't, they're not dental offices. WebMD. We're so used to these types of sites being the type of sites that answer these kind of questions. It's now a strategy. Notice the one that's all the way at the top. The one that's all the way at the top here is actually a local dentist to me. So it's over here in Dallas, and they have an FAQ, how much will it cost? And then they have the answer on that same page. Then you go up here, will my insurance pay for my implants? There's the answer. And then I come up here. These are the new thing. You can write a lot of content and put that on a page. When we do an SEO campaign for our clients, we have a lot of dental clients. This is one of the strategies we've been using for years, and it's worked 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's been working. Well, now it's working even better. Why? Because Google's starting to realize we all have cell phones, and they're starting to look at voice recognition and things that people are actually going to get online in the future and just ask questions, and it's actually starting to put that into the algorithm. So when you're writing content, you're thinking about what you can put out there to help rank. Don't forget to come out here and put, very, very intense FAQs, information, answer questions, the most commonly asked questions. Remember, everyone's going to learn how to do this, soon. Everyone's going to catch on to this. Be the first to implement this type of content, because then you'll have longevity as well as having, all that content out there. Okay, link building, we've kind of touched on it, but let's talk about link building. Let's talk about, you've heard it many different ways. Backlinks, link wheels, link building. Let's be honest about it. Over all the, past 10 years, there's been so many different strategies, and the thing I'll say is short-term versus long-term, right? So you can go out there and do some of these quick link building strategies, and they work for a while. But what you want to remember is you want to have a good quality set of links out there. So do you build links with reputation? Yes, 100%. Whether it be to try to move a profile up, try to move a web page up, the same basic SEO principles are going to be applied. I am a very cautious and I don't call myself white hat, because I do actually employ a couple things that would be considered gray hat, but I'm way far away from black hat. So I'm going to talk about safe link building techniques and how you can actually really link content and rank content very easily using these methods. Now remember, our methods, I'll tell you this, our methods are not fast. You're not going to be able to fix something in 2 weeks, but you'll be able to fix it in a way that it's fixed pretty good and for a long, long time. And that's the difference between doing, some of these link building strategies that don't often stick, or come apart when Google does an algorithm update. So as I said, we're often going to do link building the same as we would traditional SEO, except sometimes we might be wanting to try to move profiles up or down accordingly. What links should you focus on? Well, social links like Twitter, Google, Facebook, etc. You can actually rank Twitter accounts and Google accounts and Facebook accounts. Again, using the same methodologies, making sure that you have unique content going on Twitter and Google and Facebook, making sure the images you use on those profiles are unique as well, using your keywords. But then having a good quality link building strategy. So when I write a post, for example, I actually use a lovely piece of software called OnlyWire. And what OnlyWire does is when I actually syndicate news, for example, I write an article, I put it out in the news. Now, when I publish that article, this piece of software automatically puts it out on Twitter, Google, Facebook, etc. It's syndicating that news for me automatically. I also belong to Newswire, and Newswire will actually allow me to put all of that out there as well. So having all those links going back to a piece of content, and if that content passes through to your website or if it's on your website, that type of link building is going to go a long way. Again, we're going to optimize everything as we go. Everything we've learned thus far is going to happen on every single thing we do. If there's images, we're going to make sure that we're doing good optimization. If there are links, we're going to make sure we optimize those links, etc. Citation sites like Yelp, Insider Pages, the niche sites, etc. We also want to make sure that we have good quality profiles. The information on there is keyword rich. The images are following the same optimization techniques. But then we want to also, if you want to get a Yelp page to rank higher, you need to make sure you're optimizing for it. So maybe you write an article and then you have some more information, see more information on Yelp, or go see something on Insider Pages, or go see something here. You actually can rank your citation site pages. Yelp, Yahoo, Bing, those are some of the bigger ones, but even some of the niche ones, some of the smaller ones, you can get them to rank up too. Again, you're going to focus on sending good quality links to them, which in turn pass through and send good quality links to your website and other things. And then content, obviously, we've talked about content, but on-site and off-site. Now, one thing we didn't talk about was on-site content, and I'm going to go back over here and just give you, I'm going to go back to my website. And there are plugins that do this, but you can also use, by hand you can do things. But when you go ahead and you, look at an article, for example, if you wanted to, and the way we do it is, we actually have, news articles that show up on the bottom here. And so I have some different links that show up on every page. So essentially interlinking, maybe I write an article on a page and, when I'm editing this post, I might, maybe I use the word SEO, for example. I would take that word and I would link to another page on my website that might have SEO in it. And by doing that, so, maybe I say, what is SEO? And I put that in there. What I've essentially done is I've added an on-site link, but it's still a link. And Google is going to index that link and understand that from that page, we went to another page that had different content or content that's similar. And so the SEO page I just linked to, it's actually getting juice from my original page. So as you build more and more posts, as you build more and more content, and you start doing your link strategy, what you're going to see is you're actually moving all the juice through into each of your entities. And I'm going to actually show you guys an example I think that will really help, a little diagram, and let you help kind of see, how this works. So I'm just going to go to bubble.us just so I can kind of do something super quick to show you. So say this is my money site, as I'm going to call it. And some of you guys might already know this, nothing new to you. For others, this might be an eye-opener, but here's my money site. And again, the money site's going to be whatever it is you're trying to rank. If it's a Facebook site, if it's a YouTube site, if you're trying to stuff something down in your reputation, so you're just trying to bring something up. Whatever it is, what you're trying to do with links is you're trying to get good quality links coming in from other places. So say I add another page over here, and that page is my Twitter account. And Twitter is feeding into my money site. And then I add another page that's coming in, that's maybe a sub page of the site. So maybe it's post number 1. And then I come here and I add another one, and it's post number 2. And then I add another one. What you're going to see by doing all this, we're actually creating our own link strategy without having to buy a bunch of links, without having to worry about whether Google's going to penalize us, things like that. So maybe Twitter is up here, and then we'll add another site over here. Maybe that's Facebook. And then we have another site, and maybe that's LinkedIn. You're getting the idea. All of these things are passing juice to our money site, and I'm not doing the connectors the way I probably should. I'm messing up how I'm doing the connectors here. But the idea is simple, that you're actually passing. So when you write an article, I'm going to do it this way for a minute, and I'm going to put something else up here. I'm going to say this is blogger.com. So say I write an article on blogger.com, and it's about logo design. And then I write an article on wordpress.com, and that's about logo design. I take these two things and I go ahead and I write a tweet from blogger.com to Twitter, and then I do a Facebook post about my blogger.com article, and then I do a WordPress article, and I'm linking all of these things to each other. Well, blogger.com has an article about logo design, which passes through to Twitter, which is my account. Twitter passes through to my money site. Again, what we're doing is we're creating I call a link juice. So blogger.com passes it to Twitter, Twitter passes it to the money site. And I'll put in a diagram, and I'll include that as one of the extras, and you can see, how all these things go into each and every single thing. So if I have 20 that I want to do, I might have 20 different strategies to push this stuff down. Now, don't get crazy. Don't go making diagrams and spending erroneous amounts of time doing busy work you don't need to do. Come up with strategies to use tools and softwares that will automatically do these things for you, so you don't have to do them. So we're going to talk about tools, and we're going to have a conversation about what you can use, especially in the social media section. Social media is, to me, one of the #1 ways to build links. It used to be you went out to Blogger and WordPress and things like that. You can still do that. But there's so many automatic tools for Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest, that you can do quite a lot for your SEO campaign, for your optimization, for your reputation using these automated tools. So if you didn't understand that, let me know. I will, come up with another video, and we'll go over this in more detail. Okay, remember, and we said this before, focus on what is already ranking. When it comes to reputation management, you're trying to fix something. You're trying to move something down by moving things up. If something's already ranking, whether it be on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on Google, it's quicker to get that farther up than it is to say take something brand new that's not there. Focus on what's already ranking. Social signals are becoming increasingly more important in an SEO or optimization strategy. While we're not going to talk about it in depth in this particular module, it's something that you really, really need to take notice of. So, the first question, are social signals important? Yes, they are. They're important not only for an SEO strategy or an optimization strategy, they're important in every aspect of your online presence. So increasingly, Google is giving weight to social, meaning they are actually paying attention to what's happening. And when we talk about social, it's not just putting out a Facebook post or, tweeting something. It's more about the interaction or the response to what you put out there. So if you share something, if you're a dentist and you put out there something like, 100 ways why brushing your teeth is important to you. Nobody's going to read that. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's going to interact with it. You might as well not have put that out there. However, if you put out a cat video, one of the number one things on YouTube, believe it or not. If you put out a cute little kitten playing with a lion and all sweet and that kind of thing, a lot of people start sharing it. A lot of people start talking about it. That's what you're talking about with social signals. That's the type of stuff that Google's taking notice of. Unfortunately, it's usually short-lived. As the conversation's happening, you'll get a spike in traffic, so which, as you SEO these things, you get a spike in what you're doing, but it'll quickly go down just as fast as it came up. So a social signal is something you need to pay attention to, but it's a very, very in-depth strategy. It's going to take, a constant amount of effort to make that happen. More importantly, you want to use social as part of your content and link strategy. It shouldn't be a strategy used by itself. It's part of the overall strategy. And so we're going to talk about that separately. We're not going to include it here. It's just too vast of a topic to really get into all at once. So remember, social sites should be controlled and ranked as well. They are really going to help you boost reputation by moving those social sites up in place of some of the bad stuff, so the bad stuff can move down. We'll use the same techniques of, good quality images, using good quality content, making sure we're having constant content, and really just making sure that that profile is, really, really optimized to its, best. And using all the techniques we learned, you can do the same thing. Now, there are going to be separate extra videos you can watch on each particular social piece that we're interested in showing you. Okay, we're finishing up this module, and you can start diving into the little pieces of extras for this module and really, learning some of the specifics. However, something I wanted to tell you right away is, when you're doing any of your optimization, I want you guys to think high authority, meaning all your efforts should be really revolving around those sites that have super high authority. Maybe they're a 7, 8, 9 page rank to Google. Stay away from the 1, 2s, and 3s because you're looking for things that Google sees as high authority. Why? Because that pass-through juice you're going to get is just going to be that much better. So if you're talking about social media, I have a list here. This is obviously not a complete list. You can go out and look up more. But Facebook, Google+, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, MySpace, even though some people think it's dead, who cares? It's still a high-ranking, very high-authority site. You can also look at citations and blogs, Yelp and insider pages, etc. All places where you can look to actually put out content, do a link strategy, things like that. Videos and images, YouTube, Vimeo, PhotoBuckets, Flickr, Vivo, etc. Same idea. These are all high authority websites where you want to keep your efforts. And then articles and niche sites. This is not an exhaustive list. You can go out there and find thousands of sites. Again, you're looking for the high authority, highly looked upon by Google. Why? Because Google is going to find it very hard to sandbox these things. So if you actually have an article out there, it's going to be very hard for them to do anything about it except give you credit for it because that's an authoritative site. Who are they to judge from that site? If you think about, that it will help. Now, mind you, there's some new things going on with some algorithms, right now to where there are some big authorities out there, and I don't remember the names, but they are starting to lose a little bit of traction. Why? Because people abused it. And as we're going to find, if we continue to abuse stuff and continue to find shortcuts and that kind of stuff, it's just going to go against us in the end. So try to do things as naturally and on the up and up as possible, and you're going to find that it's a lot easier to optimize and rank doing those types of things as it is to try to cheat the system. So some tools that I like to talk about. I am a big fan of using as many tools as possible to simplify my world. PicMonkey is a tool that you can use for images. I was using Photoshop. You saw me use Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, you can use PicMonkey. It's an online tool when you're trying to create unique images, things like that. BuzzSumo is an online content research. If you don't know what to write about, if you need to find out what's hot or what's not in content, go out to BuzzSumo and you can actually see there's quite a lot of tools out there for that. SERPLab is what I use for my rank reporting. Right now it only does organic. It does not do local. They are working on getting local. It's very inexpensive and very rich. It's not fancy, but it's very inexpensive. So what the other guys will charge you, hundreds of dollars for a year or sometimes a month, you're going to pay $5 to $10 a month for SERPLab, and it's a really, really good tool. Small SEO tools, they have a plagiarism checker out there. That is what I use to make sure that my content is 100% unique. Mind you, it's not Copyscape, but I don't like to pay for Copyscape, so therefore I use that tool. It's very easy, it's been very good, and it has allowed me to come up with some really, really great content that's unique. Now, I have a lot of tools. I have a lot of things that I've created for my company. I have a lot of things I share in one of our products as a bonus for this course. If you get on our mailing list, Secret SEO at trophyclients.com, you will get access to some of this stuff. We'll send you a really nice email that gives you a whole bunch of links where you can go and you can get more tools and more information, including that 5-star formula we showed you. And the one that determines the reviews needed, we'll give you a copy of that. We also have this really cool proposal generator, and we do have a little course that goes with it that helps you to understand the psychology of presenting a deal to a client to get them to say yes. Okay, so to wrap up this module, what are your next steps? Well, essentially, we want to create a strategy with a timeline. We want to figure out what the most important keywords are. We want to figure out what our strategy is to deal with those keywords, what we need to move down as opposed to what we need to move up, or what we need to get more reviews on. Once we create that strategy, we need to attach a timeline to it. Why? Because time flies. Your customer's paying you by the month, but at the end of the day, they're looking for results as quickly as possible. The easiest way to do that is to come up with a strategy, follow that strategy on a certain timeline, and just get the work done. Figure out what the order of importance is. What do you need to do first? And once you decide what you need to do first, you execute upon that. Figure out when and how you're going to implement that strategy. Do you need software? Do you need help? Do you need to hire folks? Whatever it is, you just figure out what that strategy is. And then finally, measuring and reporting. Your client is going to want to know what's happening. The easiest, fastest way for a client to quit is to not touch them, to not talk to them. A lot of people think that if I just don't call the client or I don't talk to them, they just won't call me and I'll get to keep the account longer. Actually, the opposite is true. Out of sight, out of mind. If you're out there not talking to them, if you're not touching them, if you're not making contact with them, they're quicker to quit and quicker to get frustrated. It's better to call them up and say, okay, I just want to give you a progress report while we haven't made a ton of progress. Here's all the things we've done. And Google is going to start recognizing these things. So, I know it's hard, but please be patient. The idea is you want to measure what's going on, report it. So, maybe they still see the bad things sitting up here in position 4. Well, but what if you had 4 or 5 other things that used to be on page 3 that you've moved to page 2? That's progress. You want to report that progress, that we're slowly marching things up so we can move things down. Measuring and reporting are probably the single most important thing you can do other than the actual work to get it done. Okay, that's it for Module 3. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to look at the extras and check out all the other things we have for you. And we'll see you in the next module.